Alright, guys, good morning. Day 19, Friday, March. Is it the 3rd or 4th? March 3rd. I don't know what day it is. Alright, let's jump right in. So, today we are looking at pages 58, 59, 60 of Lily Singh's book, Be a Triangle. So, she goes from yesterday talking about, kind of like when negative things happen, to this concept of give and take. Everything in life has a cost. And so on page 58, there's this graphic that's kind of funny, and it's like contract with the universe. It's kind of like, it looks like a little handwritten note. Contract with the universe. This life agreement is made between, blank line says, the universe and you, whereas the universe intends to make zero promises or guarantees to you and owes you nothing. Signed on your date of birth, and then it has the universe signed and you signed. And on page 59, she goes into saying things like, lessons are not free, success is not free. Basically, everything has a cost associated. Her career cost her work life balance, leisure time, and mental health. Being great at organization cost me the ability to go with the flow. And the wonderful relationships I have now cost me years of being in bad ones. So kind of like, I kind of see two concepts, like one thing costs another thing, like, for example, how she says her career cost her work-life balance. But then there's this other concept that's like, one bad situation in the past led you to kind of make a change that led to an improvement. So, for example, she says at the bottom of that page 59, having a safe, secure home cost your last house being broken into. Like, you potentially, like, if, for example, if your house was broken into, you would have, fixed the issue to make your house more secure. Or if you end up moving, you have more knowledge about security and things like that, and how to make sure you live in the safest way possible to avoid being broken into. But also, some things you can't really say 100% sure that that's never going to happen. Like, there's really no such place that you can really guarantee no one's ever going to break into, unless you kind of rig some weird kind of thing where you have like all sorts of security or whatever, guards, like traps, like, I don't know. Like, most of us live in places that can potentially be broken into, but there are things to do that can deter someone from breaking in, for sure. And so, yeah, that idea of the give and take, sometimes, I would say, to expand on the idea, sometimes you sacrifice something now, for a reward later. So that happens a lot with school, with jobs. You might have a job that you want, but the start, 3 months, 2 years, whatever, might be hard when you're first starting there. You might have, a degree you want to get a certain job, but the classes you have to take might not be easy, or it might take years out of your time versus years and money versus, for example, being an electrician and going to a trade school program and learning really quick and getting a job that pays really decently well, where you can afford the cost of living. um, you know, those types of things, you know, sometimes it's like people want the prestige, people want the challenge, people want to prove things to themselves, to other people. Um, People love learning. You know, I'm not bashing schools. I do think that they're way overpriced, and there is kind of this like almost, I don't know if you'd call it like hazing, but it's almost like a hazing. At least in my time period, where it's like this is tradition. We've gone through these routes, even though it's proven that it doesn't really guarantee that you're going to be successful in the program. It doesn't say anything about you too much. It just makes it so it's harder for people to get in, and it creates some kind of borders for like admissions criteria. Like for example, I went, you know, to grad school, and you know, to apply to grad schools in my day and age, you had to have a GRE score. And we all knew, you know, everybody knows standardized tests are biased, like blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, a lot of us aren't trained to take these tests. Standardized testing isn't like you know the answer, it's more like you can quickly get to the concept, to the theoretical concept. So, like, for example, the English or the math, you're not really solving the problems or answering the questions. You're kind of just like using one technique to kind of get to how you choose the multiple choice answer. It's not like you're solving the complete problem necessarily like you would like in a math homework assignment or something. Um, it's an interesting way of thinking, but it's a way of thinking that you have to learn how to think that way to be able to do well. And I know when I was in high school, you know, we had a lot of students from different Asian countries, and you know, I had a lot of friends, you know, classmates, peers, who didn't speak English and were scoring far better than most of the Americans because they had been trained to take the tests. It didn't matter if they knew how to speak properly or read properly. And I'm not like faulting them. I'm just saying that that just shows, you know, that the tests are just kind of weird. Like if you're not raised and trained in an environment where you're learning how to take the tests, you're not, I mean, you can do well, but I mean, you have a better chance if you've been trained since like 5 years old in school. Like we've taken the test since we were young, like STAR testing and all that stuff you do in school, but we were never like trained how to take standardized testing, if that makes sense. They would just like give them to you. But the way you learned wasn't based on standardized testing skills. It was based on, you know, actually solving the actual problem, showing your work, all that kind of stuff. It was never like speed testing, time testing, too much, stuff like that. Like there was a little bit with like reading and like math. There were some timed aspects, but it wasn't always like that. It was very rare that we did things that were like timed and like for speed. Um, but yeah, like you know, I mean, I guess I'm going off topic a little bit, but the reason why I'm mentioning all the standardized testing and stuff is because nowadays, with the economy as it is, and with you know brick and mortar schools kind of suffering to kind of get applicants, people not wanting to go that deeply into debt, people looking at the job market and wondering if a degree is really worth their time. Do I really want to spend 4 years in school when I could just work at 18 years old? You know, is a degree really worth it versus the experience? Um, you know, degrees are not necessarily obsolete, but they're kind of in question at the moment, and that's leading schools to kind of try to make the requirements less stringent to try to get in. So I've even heard of some grad schools saying that you don't really need to take the GRE to get in, because they want people to apply. Now that might be a bit of a scam. They might actually prefer the GRE and not let in any students that never took it. I mean, I wouldn't know. Like, I'm not like up to date on that kind of information, but it's like we're seeing a lot of changes with with, a system of cost and benefits where if the cost is too much for society, not even financial cost, but the cost of time, effort, energy, just the cost of, quality of life, a lot of people are like, I don't really know if I really want to do this. Is it worth, the beginning of my adult life to start out in debt and to get a degree that I could probably work my way into the position I want anyways. Um, and also a lot of jobs are kind of waiving degrees because they're needing so much workers. I've seen it even in the field of psychology that when I was first working at the clinic near the border, um, everyone who worked there who was clinical staff working with clients, unless you were a peer specialist who went through that type of training, the RAP training, you were basically a master's degree or higher. And the people who were peer specialists that weren't really degree based, but they were the certificate based workers, they only saw a certain type of clientele in a certain type of way. Um, and then the people who were, um, you know, um, the people who were, um, um, with master's degrees, you basically could be like a practicum student or like a full time or part time or temporary worker. Um, and then there were the licensed people that had the masters and they were licensed. Um, they had a different opportunity for positions, but now, in recent years, they've started allowing people with bachelor's degrees to do the same type of work that I started out doing. I mean, the pay rates are different and everything, but it's like, there's definitely changes in the field because they're needing the workers, they're needing staff. They can't, a lot of times, people with the masters, with the pay rates before they kind of started getting different contracts with better pay rates, even though the pay rates aren't like great, but they're better definitely. Like it's pretty much almost double what I was getting paid in like 2019. Um, so um, it's a decent amount of money, um, and you're able to survive off of the income, and you know there was a period where they were having trouble getting workers because it was like, well, if you have a master's degree, you're not going to work for under $20 an hour. You know, when McDonald's pays like 18 to $20 an hour, it was kind of like people weren't going to certain job sites just because the pay rates were so low. And so finally, that's when some of those companies budged, and it makes me curious. I mean, this isn't really the topic, but I get curious about like, were they just giving us lip service saying that like, oh, it's up to the county and like all this kind of stuff, like, because it seemed like they were able to fix that problem real quick when they only had like one or two full-time clinicians versus the amount that they needed of like 30 something staff or whatever. And then they realized they had like a wait list of almost 600 people or something, and then they were just like, oh, like I need to actually like hire people and make this enticing for people to even want to work here and apply, because the work is stressful, so you don't want to have stressful work where you also can't pay your bills and you're struggling financially, um, while you've gone through all the school and you have all the experience you need, and you've worked in the field. It's like, what's the incentive there, right? So a lot of this stuff with like cost and benefits to things, is also adapting and changing with the climate of, you know, workforce issues, finance issues, the economy issues, um, all sorts of things, education issues, mental health issues. There's so much changing simultaneously that things don't even look the same as they did in 2019. They don't look the same as they did when I was getting out of grad school or when I was applying to grad school, things are so different. And a lot of jobs are doing what they can to kind of give people raises, kind of give people higher positions, um, have some kind of incentive for people to want to stay. Some places let their workers off early on Fridays. There's a lot of stuff that's definitely changing that is supposed to help and probably is helping um, with lifestyle balance and quality. But it's something to think about, because a lot of things do have a trade off, you know. And sometimes it's worth it and we don't even think twice about it. And other times it's like a burden. Sometimes it's a temporary burden. And sometimes people are like not really understanding why you're doing what you do the way you do it. Like, I know people never understood, why I was living in a household with a bunch of people that I was like, oh my goodness, and just didn't want to even deal with it ever. And I didn't really want to deal with the nonsense. But for me, the savings, to some extent, in the end, the savings was kind of worth it because I was paying so little rent. So now I'm able to have up to a year off, which I'm not taking a year off fully, but I could take a year off. So I have that comfort. I could take a year off while taking trips and going out and doing stuff that I want to do. Travel a little bit, even if it's not like far, but I don't have any financial burden at the very second. I mean, other than student loans. So that's one thing that for me, it made more sense to stay kind of financially sound and not not try and like give in to the like how people were like, oh, you need to move, you need to pay this much for a house or an apartment or whatever. And I was just like, I mean, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but it's like I'm the one paying the bills. And so if I'm the one paying my bills and I don't want to pay that much money, it kind of makes things a tad bit challenging. So I would say that's the best way to handle it, is kind of checking to see what's the best way to really decide if the cost is worth what you're getting at the end. Is the cost worth it? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But that's up to the individual to know. I couldn't make that decision for someone else. Somebody else can't say that for me. It's really individualized. So, it's definitely something to keep an eye open about, and to even think about when, maybe there's quality issues. Like quality of life issues, kind of taking into account what it's coming from, like where it's coming from, what is the cost that's being, used for certain things to be issues. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that topic. I can review my day yesterday and this morning. It's now 10:45 a.m. I'm trying to get on the road in about an hour because I gotta stop by a shop. So maybe in like an hour. I don't know yet. Um, but yeah, yesterday I woke up around 6:49 a.m. Started my laundry. I had a 7 milligram edible, which did not help with being productive at all. Um, I kind of got a little more energetic around almost 2:30 p.m. Had lunch. I was playing with this chat bot around 4 o'clock, and then around 5:30 I worked on some podcasting a little more on this relationship series. And this morning I woke up, I want to say it was like 6:15 a.m. I didn't sleep till maybe 1:30 a.m. and which is late. I did have some C4 at a bad time because it was later in the afternoon, or later in the evening, like around 5 or 6 p.m., which was not a good idea, but it kept my mind really active most of the night. I eventually put on like a Michael Seeley 8-hour track, and when I woke up this morning, it said it had been playing for like five something hours. It wasn't even 6 hours, so which explains why I'm not, fully up and alert too much. I got my rental car from Kite. This time they delivered it to the neighbor. But at least they call me. They don't like door knock or anything. Dude, what is going on out there? People don't usually do yard work on Fridays next door. Usually they do it Tuesdays. So I don't know. But yeah, I woke up too early. Tried to go back to sleep, couldn't. And then around I'd say around 8:50, close to 9 a.m., just like a couple minutes before 9 a.m., I started making breakfast, slash showering. All I had was 2 boiled eggs and like half of a bowl of lentils. I'm not feeling super hungry, but I'm gonna grab a really unhealthy McDonald's burger on my way out to San Diego. I'm shooting to be in San Diego by about 3. So I could leave around 1, but I'd rather leave closer to like 12 would give me like 3 hours. So I might leave around 12 actually. I was saying I was going to leave around 11:30, but I don't want to get there at like 1:30 and then be waiting for like an hour and a half. But yeah, if I leave a little early, it'll give me time to kind of get some stuff that I need from the store. And I've got plans either 5:30 p.m. or earlier this evening, depending on my friend's work schedule. So, yeah. I'm just, I gotta pack up some stuff. My mom kind of gets on my nerves when I'm leaving. She kind of likes to she overwhelms me with the amount that she's kind of like trying to talk to me and ask me, do you need this? Do you want that? Do you need this? Do you want that? It's like, oh my gosh, no, leave me alone. So I'm gonna pack up the car and make sure everything's in it before I head out. And I'll say goodbye to her just for the weekend. I'm only going for a couple days. And then I'll just be able to like take off right away versus like say goodbye while I'm packing and then she keeps like talking to me. So I get really annoyed by that, and she does not really understand how to stop. So I already know that, so I'm gonna pack around 11:30, and then once I leave, things should be good. I'm thinking I'm gonna pack soon, actually, and then just rest. Um, but yeah, that's kind of all I've got going on today. I'll see if I record while I'm driving. Um, I might not. I don't really know for sure. Um, and then I'll see once I get back from San Diego if the mountains are available. So long as I don't need chains, I totally want to go up for maybe half a week. So I don't know, but we'll see. All right. So with that, thanks for listening.